Photographic Composition, Lecture 4, Still Life and Product, Part 3. As we've been discussing, not only are the products important in photographing products, but themselves, but also the lighting. In this case, an extreme example where the lighting is very subtle, light coming from the left and right, but nothing being revealed of the product. It's not identifiable except marginally as a champagne bottle. At another end of the scale is something like this, where it's a bit of a stunt. We have water cascading from somewhere. It appears to be coming out of the bottle, perhaps, or the bottle has just landed in the water. Kind of hard to tell, but the product imagery is very easy to read. And this is obviously a very dramatic example of how to photograph a vodka bottle. It's very simple, straightforward view of an object where the background becomes almost non-existent, but in this case has a reflective surface under the watch, which gives it a more three-dimensional feeling. We know that it's sitting on something very specific. Another watch, but where they've chosen to keep the background so simple that it virtually disappears, except for a slight reflection on the surface. And of course, at times, product is photographed with people. But again, this is more of a still life as far as I'm concerned than it is, even though it has a live model, it's really much more about the objects that surround her. By the way, the lighting, again, is very soft, extremely soft. The shadows are very subtle, and as a result, we're able to see the handbag and the boots in great detail. Here's an object or a couple of objects that we're very familiar with. Part of the assignment in photographing them was to show how thin they are. So this not only shows the computers, the computer and the iPad, but it also expresses how thin they are, at the risk of giving you any kind of detail, and as a result, it's visually risky, but it I think accomplishes what it sets out to do. Again, very straightforward, clear bottles, different colors, and making a wonderfully pleasant array of colors, I think. This nice tight composition. And here the photographer or someone has had fun carving up an apple and then stitching it back together again. And I'm not sure what the purpose was for this image, but it's kind of intriguing. These are all either there are a variety of objects, and in order to create this letter out of yellow, they've actually used objects that are yellow among a sea of black objects, which appear to be primarily photographic equipment, lenses, and so forth. And it has a sort of power to it. This is power of a different kind. It looks like a backpack that's been filled with, or maybe a purse filled with a couple of different colored paints, and have no idea what has ruptured it, perhaps a shotgun blast. But like the Harold Edgerton image that we saw earlier, everything has been stopped in space with by using strobes. The action is absolutely halted. So we see drops in midair. And not bad to maintain a sense of humor about what we're doing. In this case, a group of pairs checking out photograph of another pair. Again, pay attention to the quality of the light, though. This is lit as if it was a big deal commercial commission. Another very simple composition, and really about the interplay of a small number of objects, these spheres sitting in a bowl on a tabletop, and the light is what animates them. In order to show the use that these brushes are put to, they're used for makeup, by brushing one against another and seeing actual makeup flying through the air. We not only get to see the objects themselves, the brushes, but also have a sense of their use. When this photograph was first shown, it's Piss Christ by Andrea Skursky, it caused a huge sensation. It was considered scandalous. It is actually a crucifix that is sitting in a jar of the artist's urine. And a very provocative, obviously, and compelling image. Along the same lines, but perhaps less obviously provocative, is this skull studded with diamonds that was created by Damien Hirst and sold for $100 million. And yes, that is in fact what the price was. Very much a commercial art world stunt. Not sure that the work actually lives up to it, but it is interesting nonetheless. Here we also see him posing next to the skull. The image on the left is very much like a product shot. It's a still life. Very evenly lit. It has depth to it, but it's easy to see detail. And then Mr. Hirst mugging with the sculpture on the right. More than likely, someone from the insurance company holding on to it to make sure that nothing happens to it, given its price tag. Jan Groover was an American photographer who, among other things, photographed a lot of domestic items, objects in her daily life. In this case, obviously, knife, fork, spoons, and various other objects, but extremely tight close-up. The composition was really about shape and how light plays against those, or plays off of those shapes. I wanted to take something, a very simple everyday object, such as silverware, and show a variety of different ways that they can be displayed in photographs, using different backgrounds and different angles. And I wanted to kind of quickly go through some of the ways that they've been represented. In this case, very straightforward. They're lined up, very nice soft light coming in from the left, and nice reflections coming off the utensils. This is virtually the negative version of that earlier shot, but also very dramatic, but straightforward. We get to see the objects very clearly, and they appear to float on a black background. In this case, they've been shot, the objects have been shot from a lower point of view with very shallow depth of focus, and as a result, they're very soft in the foreground and only become clear at in the distance, and then actually in the far distance go out of focus again. And this is the opposite of that, where the objects have been shot from a relatively oblique angle, where there's a lot of foreshortening, but they are absolutely in focus from front to back. And I just find these interesting utensils, and photographed in such a way that it plays up their sort of demonic appearance. This is, I think, a very nice composition. Just a minimal number of objects: knife, fork, napkin, plate, and on perhaps a tablecloth or something, some green background. The lighting is, again, very soft, very simple. And on a very similar colored background, but with the objects very differently placed and cropped. I mean, this is an unusual, I think, view of silverware. And here we just see them laid out as if they were ready for an event to begin. Same thing here, fewer elements, very selective focus. It goes out of focus very quickly in the foreground and the background. And the light is extremely soft and, if anything, a little overlit, but that gives it a very attractive appearance. Here we have virtually the opposite of that, where the lighting is extremely dark and greater at the top than it is at the bottom. Which is also true here. The arrangement is a little more complicated with things overlaying each other, and the inclusion of looks like grass and a small flower. Not quite sure any of that's necessary, but the relationship between the stone that the objects are on and the objects themselves, I think, is quite nice. This is sort of a controlled jumble of utensils, and again, extreme close-up. We know what they are, but they create this interesting, complicated composition. And what often happens when photographing product or doing a still life is that there's a lot of experimentation of the arrangement of the objects and how they fill the frame. In this case, they fill the frame in a fairly similar manner between the two of them, but the napkin is changed a little bit, and the image is rotated from one to the next frame. And this is not, in fact, I mean, this is a sort of lampshade created out of actual utensils, and it's sort of a different spin on the idea of silverware. Since it's a lamp, it's important to note that the kind of orange blush on the utensils, especially in the background, is coming from the light bulb. Again, very simple, straightforward. The lighting is very subdued. It's very low, so it's not about having the objects jump out. If anything, they recede as a result of the way things are lit in this case. And here it looks like some very old utensils that haven't been used in a long time have been taken out of a drawer and placed on this fabric. Again, the quality of light, I think, is quite extraordinary. Light that has been kept low and sort of glances across the tops of the objects. Again, fairly extreme shallow focus. And as usual, very soft light. And a really straightforward, very clear, evenly lit image of a kind of whimsical spoon.